Auguries of Innocence by William Blake. LibriVox.org by Phil Schempf. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. A robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. A dove-house filled with doves and pigeons shudders hell through all its regions. A dog starved at his master's gate predicts the ruin of the state. A horse misused upon the road calls to heaven for human blood. Each outcry of the hunted hare a fibre from the brain does tear. A skylark wounded in the wing a cherubim does cease to sing. The gamecock clipped and armed for fight does the rising sun affright. Every wolf's and lion's howl raises from hell a human soul. The wild deer, wandering here and there, keeps the human soul from care. The lamb misused breeds public strife, and yet forgives the butcher's knife. The bat that flits at close of eve has left the brain that won't believe. The owl that calls upon the night speaks the unbeliever's fright. He who shall hurt the little wren shall never be beloved by men. He who the ox to wrath has moved shall never be by woman loved. The wanton boy that kills the fly shall feel the spider's enmity. He who torments the chaffer's sprite weaves a bower in endless night. The caterpillar on the leaf repeats to thee thy mother's grief. Kill not the moth nor butterfly, for the last judgment draweth nigh. He who shall train the horse to war shall never pass the polar bar. The beggar's dog and widow's cat, feed them and thou wilt grow fat. The gnat that sings his summer's song poison gets from slanderer's tongue. The poison of the snake and newt is the sweat of envy's foot. The poison of the honey bee is the artist's jealousy. The prince's robes and beggar's rags are toadstools on the miser's bags. A truth that's told with bad intent beats all the lies you can invent. It is right, it should be so. Man was made for joy and woe. And when this we rightly know, through the world we safely go. Joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. The babe is more than swaddling bands. Throughout all these human lands, tools were made and born were hands. Every farmer understands. Every tear from every eye becomes a babe in eternity. This is caught by females bright and returned to its own delight. The bleat, the bark, bellow, and roar are waves that beat on heaven's shore. The babe that weeps the rod beneath writes revenge in realms of death. The beggar's rags, fluttering in air, does to rags the heavens tear. The soldier, armed with sword and gun, palsied strikes the summer's sun. The poor man's farthing is worth more than all the gold on Afric's shore. One mite wrung from the laborer's hands shall buy and sell the miser's lands. Or if protected from on high, does that whole nation sell and buy. He who mocks the infant's faith shall be mocked in age and death. He who shall teach the child to doubt, the rotting grave shall ne'er get out. He who respects the infant's faith triumphs over hell and death. The child's toys and the old man's reasons are the fruits of the two seasons. The questioner, who sits so sly, shall never know how to reply. He who replies to words of doubt doth put the light of knowledge out. The strongest poison ever known came from Caesar's laurel crown. Naught can deform the human race like to the armorer's iron brace. When gold and gems adorn the plough, to peaceful arts shall envy bow. A riddle or the cricket's cry is to doubt a fit reply. The emmet's inch and eagle's mile make lame philosophy to smile. He who doubts from what he sees will ne'er believe, do what you please. If the sun and moon should doubt, they'd immediately go out. To be in a passion you good may do, but no good if a passion is in you. The whore and gambler by the state licensed build that nation's fate. The harlot's cry from street to street shall weave old England's winding sheet. The winner's shout, the loser's curse, dance before dead England's hearse. Every night and every morn some to misery are born. Every morn and every night some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to endless night. We are led to believe a lie when we see not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, when the soul slept in beams of light. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Bell by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Read for LibriVox.org by Ross Howard on April 29th in Atlanta, Georgia. I love thy music, mellow bell. I love thine iron chime, to life or death, to heaven or hell, which calls the sons of time. Thy voice upon the deep, the homebound sea boy hails. It charms his cares to sleep, it cheers him as he sails. To house of God and heavenly joys, thy summons called our sires, and good men thought thy sacred voice disarmed the thunder's fires. And soon thy music, sad death bell, shall lift its notes once more, and mix my requiem with the wind that sweeps my native shore. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Builders by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Esther Shannon. All are architects of fate, working in these walls of time, some with massive deeds and great, some with ornaments of rhyme. Nothing useless is or low, each thing in its place is best, and what seems but idle show strengthens and supports the rest. For the structure that we raise, time is with materials filled. Our todays and yesterdays are the blocks with which we build. Truly shape and fashion these, leave no yawning gapes between. Think not because no man sees, such things will remain unseen. In the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care, each minute and unseen part, for the gods see everywhere. Let us do our work as well, both the unseen and the seen, make the house where gods may dwell, beautiful, entire, and clean. Else our lives are incomplete, standing in these walls of time, broken stairways where the feet stumble as they seek to climb. Build today, then, strong and sure, with the firm and ample base, and ascending and secure shall tomorrow find its place. Thus alone can we attain to those turrets where the eye sees the world as one vast plain and one boundless reach of sky. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Certain Among Us Walk in Loneliness by Eleanor Fargen. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Certain among us walk in loneliness along the pale, unprofitable days, hazarding many an unanswered guess at what vague purpose wastes us on our ways. We know that we are potent to create. We say, I could be such, or such, or such. And lo, indifferent death swings back the gate, and life has never put us to the touch. So, women with the aching will to bear, still to the barren grave must barren go. And men that might again like Titans dare angelic secrets, die and nothing know. Alas, why were we born to woe and bliss, if life had no more need of us than this? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Cervantes by Silas Weir Mitchell. Read for LibriVox.org by Arden. April 24. Cervantes. There are who gather with decisive power the mantle of contentment round their souls, and face with strange serenity the hour of pain or grief or any storm that rolls, destruction or the tender joys of life. There are whom some great quest of heart or brain keeps even poised whatever fate the years may fetch to mock with lesser loss or gain, and find brief joy in smiles, small grief in tears, and tranquil take the hurts of human strife. A few there be who spendthrift airs of mirth, immortal mock the insolence of fate, and with a breath of jesting round the earth, ripple men's cheeks with smiles, and gay elate, sit ever in the sunshine of their mood. O royal master of all merry chords, of every note in mirth's delightful scale, to thee was spared no pang that earth affords, nor any woe of sorrow's endless tale. Want, prison wounds, all that has man subdued. But, light of soul, as if all life were joy, forever armed with humor's shining mail, true-hearted gallant, free from scorn's alloy, when life was beggared of its best, and frail, grew hope, 'tis said thou still wert lord of smiles. This could I wish, and yet it well may be, thy heart smiled not, for wit, like fairy gold, mayhap won not for him who scattered glee, no help for him by whom the jest was told. The world's sad fool, whose ever ready wiles rang the glad bells of laughter down the years, and cheated pain with merry mysteries, and from a prison cell the twins of tears sent forth his Don and Squire to win at ease such joy of mirth as his could never be. Ah, who can say his latest day of pain took Shakespeare's kindred soul? I trust they met where smiles are frequent and the saddest gain, what earth denies the privilege to forget the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely. But where he sleeps, the land which gave him birth, and gave no more to him its greatest child, knows not today some levelled heap of earth, some nameless stone, lies o'er him who beguiled so many a heart from thinking on its pain. Yet I can fancy that at morning there the birds sing gladder, and at evening still the peasant, resting from his day of care, goes joyous thence with some mysterious thrill of lightsome mirth, whose cause he seeks in vain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Things New and Old, 1884, Chalfont St. Giles, by Edward Hayes Plumptre. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Schempf. Yes, he is with me now, that blind old man, of whom I oft have told thee. I have sought to save him from the city's tainted air, and so from out the streets, whose midnight hush is broken by the plague cart's bell, while death with sweeping sigh mows down the grass of life, I brought him hither. But a few green fields divide us, and at morn and noon and eve we meet as friends familiar, I to hear and he to speak. From pale lips eloquent flow golden words, and from the treasured store, like a wise scribe, he brings forth new and old. Remembered words of poets and of sage float like a strain of music to his ears. And so from out the dark clouds of the night the moon looks forth upon his lonely path, and leads him o'er wild moor and dreary waste until the day star rises. And his joy, when o'er him comes the breath of new-mown fields, the fragrance of the eglantine and rose, or the rich sweetness which the summer rain draws from the bosom of the parched earth, shines like a sunbeam o'er that sightless face, and sound, by some strange mystery of the sense, seems half transmuted into subtler waves, and tells of form and color. Not for him the golden sunset and the roseate dawn, and yet the breath of morning and the songs of lark that chants his anthems high and clear bring to his soul the brightness and the glow. He cannot see the lightning's fiery flash, but every peal of solemn thunder sweeps with sudden glory to the inward eye. And lo, his soul mounts upward to the throne, whence issue voices mighty as the surge of many waters, and the emerald arch spans the wide vault, and 1,000 angels wait, each in his order, or go to and fro, serving their master. So each varying tone, when the soft breeze from out the pine tree tops calls the low murmur as of distant seas, or pattering of raindrops on the eaves tells of the springtide shower, or babbling brook from pebbly depths and shallows in its course makes clearest music. All alike for him are but the notes of one vast symphony that rises up from nature to her God. And each fair scene is present to his thoughts, as once it was to sight that now is quenched. But man is more than nature, and his soul soars to yet loftier empyrean heights, when from the ivory keys the expert's touch creates its wondrous world of melody. The solemn chants which fill the lofty choir, the madrigals which speak of youth and joy, the rushing flood of some o'erflowing strain that pours unbidden, man's will powerless to start or guide or check it. This his hands work for themselves, and I but sit and hear, wrapped in that cloud of music and borne on to heights before unknown. And yet my voice, that too has power to stir the depths of life, or ringing out great Homer's trumpet tones, or following Virgil's calmer, statelier tread, or the dread vision of the Florentine, or in our English speech, with psalms and hymn, and hallelujah, such as Levites sang before their God, the Lord of Sabaoth, kindling his spirit, till the wind that sweeps with mighty rushing wakes his soul to hear the echoes of the anthems of the stars, the music of the mountain and the flood. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Christianus, A Story of Antioch by Handley Mole. Read for LibriVox.org by InTheDesert. The spirit of him who raised his Christ again, here in this quiet bower of life, not death, a season till the flame of day is gone, rest with thy grandsire, my Theodotus, my child, my joy, my own, and let the old man, here, even here, converse with thee apart of their immortal hope, and thine and mine. It was the Saint Apelles with the son of Nymphas, his slain son, whom once the sword of persecuting Nero struck by night, flying from Antioch with his wife, his boy, and grey-haired parents, by the winding gleam of their Orontes, while the starry fields shone through the spires of Cyprus, and far off the shout of Christian death rose on the wind. They sought Seleucia's haven, but in vain. Nymphas and that fair partner of his faith, his radiant Ariadne, with one cry, together in the ambush passed to life, and blessed Persis with them, she whose love, a mother's love and glorified from heaven, now thither with her conquering children flew. But the worn grandsire and the helpless boy, struck also as for death, yet lived, and soon the trembling church, by stealth upon their track, threading the coastward paths, there found, in time, the breathing child, still clasped by breathing love. And one they bore away and tended long, in the deep-caverned mountains near the clouds, till some uncertain peace had risen again. And the other, young and fair, an orphan saint, they wafted, waiting long a friendly sail, to Cyprian Salamis across the wave. Now years had rolled, and from that other shore, Theodotus, a youthful presbyter, on errands of the church at length returned to Antioch, and Apelles and the graves, nameless but unforgotten of the blessed, 3 flowery mounts concealed amidst the wood, far from the imperial highway, yet from whence the parted leafage oped a prospect long, up that renowned vale wherein the queen of Syrian cities with one precinct huge, of sombre ramparts, heaped on field and hill, guarded her marble glories, courts and towers, a fourfold labyrinth, town linked with town. So to those graves Apelles, white with years, 80, had led his grandson on, and bade him there repose. The western sun, low in the summer heavens, purpled the crest of seaward Coryphaeus, and with lines of slanting shadow, limning marked the streets of Antioch, and her squares and colonnades, and temples on the side of Silpius piled. The youth began, "What sweeter rest than this, here in this bower of everlasting rest, beneath you restful havens, watching thy face, where rest perpetual after tempest reigns, to list thee speak of him who is our rest, knowing with joy profound that I with thee in the same truth at the same cross have rest. Ah, once, when first the agony of growth began within my soul, ere yet by grace our Lord attuned all discords to his word, dark fears beset me that my inmost self must suffer dislocation from the faith given to the saints, to thee, to those at rest. Now, amidst immeasurable change of outward things, and in the mind's deep world, I grasp this point of fixity, the Lord. Thou art in him, I also. All thy hope hangs on his cross, propitiatory, so mine. We rest and move together, I with thee. And thou, O Father of my Father, thou, none other, for our all is gone before, canst tell me of that glorious past, the days of the first gospel word and earliest faith in them and thee. My father speaks no more, nor she who answered my unconscious smiles. And is thy part thus happy, the elder said, in this calm hour, my child? Sure mine is yet happier, or what can match an old man's bliss who marks the eternal grace above our will, still working in the wills that are to toil when ours shall rest forever. But now hear and answer, if men chance to ask my son, "What art thou?" "What?" Theodotus broke in. "What, father, but a Christian? I am a man, a Greek, a presbyter, but these to me seem less of the true self, nay, even the sound. Theodotus seems less of the true self than this all-sacred name which comes direct from him who saved me." I, the grandsire, said, "It is a worthy name, and yet the world once laughed around it with hilarious scorn, now fears it as some spectral monster seen in the black evening sky above the towers of a beleaguered city soon to fall. We, my beloved, thou and I, today, conversing here in love, yet by the world are counted worse in purpose than the wretch who whets his dagger in the forest cave. Haters of humankind, followers of one who hated it before us. For the truth, replied Theodotus, the eternal love, bids us not seemingly, but in pure truth, love humankind, and therefore warn the man of his own evil, and that second death, undying, so the man mislikes the love, which yet, through him who loved us, is in truth. Yes, even the votaries of yon shrine of sin, yon myrtle-berried Daphne, whence even now, in face of day, the din of shameless shame goes up along the vale, are yet to us more pitiable than loathsome, yet the world hates us and fears. Now as the young man spoke of that far-famous Daphne, and the voice of soft luxurious sin which frequent thence men heard, and called it the deep bower of joy, Apelles for a while in thoughts remote kept silence, seeing things that were no more. Then thus resumed, "Our name in every land, since Nero kindled Rome, has been a sound of formidable evil, but of old, when first amidst the nations, and here first in Antioch of all cities, lips pronounced those syllables, a Christian, the dread word was but the sorry toy of bantering mirth, since as my townsfolk ever love to toss from tongue to tongue around their theatre or down the city streets, and this concerns thy father and grandfather, thou shalt hear. So from his breast the old Christian with the word drew forth a book, a little book, but kept with sacred care. Pure parchment was the scroll, on Indian ivory wound, and ringed with cords of silk and purple, splendid still in age. Within, in delicate uncials, ran inscribed Luke's apostolic history, done in Rome, then bought a new-found treasure, great of price, in Antioch by young Nymphas, after death, found with his body by Orontes' stream. This now his father opened, till the hand, trembling a little with that ancient grief, stayed on the record of the abundant toil of Barnabas in Antioch, and the friend whom Barnabas, from the Sicilian shore, with news of gospel triumph and a world just opening to Messiah, led with joy to teach in Syria, there upon the page. Following that tremulous hand, the young man read how first in Antioch were the brethren called Christians, and now at length by him that knew, in willing ears the comment should be poured. Thou knowest, beloved, that thy father found, long ere his father, the celestial truth, drawn from the mire of this world, from the shades of those Daphnean myrtles blamed by thee, from traps of sensual dalliance and the wiles, as false, as deathful, of the unchastened Muse. But I was ever different from my son, ne'er trod Apollo's labyrinthine grove, nor much saluted the idols, save to shun that foolish cry of atheist, which the mob shout fiercely when a man in mood of thought passes without regard some chiselled stone, Ares or Dionysus, or the limbs of Aphrodite. My supreme delight was our Hellenic wisdom, and such strains of elder poesy as to my soul seemed not unworthy to preclude the steps of wisdom. Once in Epicurus's train I walked in thought a while, not asking sloth, nor wholly sensuous pleasures, but repose. Enamoured then of Plato's Academe, I mused of universals, and that sphere where in procession long the festal gods ascending gaze at last on things that are. But more and more, for who but feels the stress and tide of thoughts contemporary, the school of now prevailing science, the sage airs of Stoic Zeno drew me, and I bowed, low in a proud submission to his fate, all-ruling fate, whose circling ocean wafts each individual being, gods alike and godlike man, to where in the end is found, in still absorption, or one final flame, repose ineffable without a wave. All elements of weary self immerged into the eternal all, which thus to each must in the course of restless aeons prove their Lethe and Elysium both in one. So reasoned I, so chose, and felt a power peculiar from that doctrine on my soul, fit for my place in time this waning age. For sure it wanes, Theodotus, the muse and freedom both grow silent, only now a better morning shines, a fadeless spring, life even for this world in the eternal name. My blessed Nymphas often, strong in thought, stronger in heaven-born love, and oft with him thy mother Ariadne, sacred soul, templed in form most beautiful, essayed with reverent influences manifold to allure me to the Lord. But 'twas lost pains. I saw the unearthly fairness of their lives, and watched them walk in meekness, yet on heights of serene virtue and self-conquering will, which never Zeno touched, nor all the school with all our rigour. But I saw with eyes that only saw, nor ever filled with drops of self-accusing conscience, for my world was in itself complete. To me the verse of Homer and the Stoic law were all, my orb of satisfaction, while I mused oft through the glowing noon or moonlit hours, there in the street of Singon in my court, where marble muses and my master's brow in marble wavered in the fountain pool, reflected, and far off the city stirred. My Persis hearkened better, so the all-wise willed, ordering all. Her soul was not like mine, self-centered, but through tenderest contact with those she loved and whom he made so fair, was drawn by grace to him to shine in turn with more than youthful charm of holiest love. But the hours flowed under me, and moons increased and vanished, and meanwhile the gospel grew, and he, all blessed Paul, by me unseen, in that same street, a furlong up the hill, now taught the word, yet still I read and mused, and went the round of civic life, and felt what seemed a deepening calm, the pantheist hope, total annihilation, but I veiled the abhorrent word in phrases where the self lurked, self-alluding, though it seemed to die. But now at last I went, all force and will, thy father with me, to that upper room. And why so went? It was the word of scorn, the shout of Christian, that impelled me there. And thus it fell. One certain day the lords, but not the lords to me, about mid-morn, unusual tumult roared along the street before my gateway, and I rose to see, lo, men and stripling lads and children small, and dissolute women with a ribald band of altar priests from Daphne, and then last 3 beardless tribunes of the garrison, went by in thick disorder, swift or slow, with shrieking laughter and lascivious songs, and cry that answered cry, but over all the Romans pealed a word to me unknown, Christianus, Christianus, and a stave not of Pindaric mood went up the while, in high contempt of fools who must needs climb and hunt above the clouds to find their king, bedropped with oil, who once from Pilate's cross flew up aloft to where the bubbles fly. Then thundering came again the word of scorn, Christianus, Christianus, so they passed. And I, forth looking from the gateway, saw in front, half hidden by the following rout, what moved their music. 'Twas my son, my own, just then returning from the place of prayer, to where, far distant, near the northern walls, his Ariadne waited in their home. I saw him pass, with unaverted face, out of the street of Singon into that, named of Tiberius, and the scene was o'er. But ever and anon a fitful shout, remote and yet remoter, dissonant, with songs and laughter, reached me from below. Now grace in all its ways is wonderful, most wonderful to me, for I that hour, reasoning on links of fate, had seemed to climb far into spheres of sad serenity, whence vain indeed and trivial past all thought, appeared the momentary cares of men. Then came that hideous clamour, foul, obscene, worthy in itself of infinite contempt, yet here the anguish touched me, strong to pierce, with cruel stings, the pure soul of a man, dear to me, my begotten. Straight the calm of Zeno fled within me, wrathful will woke after many a tranquil year again, and pacing through the house I made resolve, indignant that myself would hear, and soon, and that with open mind, what Nymphus held, for reason and those wretches made their song. So thought I then of them, so spoke, not now, for such also God's own Son was slain. After 3 days, when evening shades lay long, I went to hearken, leaning as I went on his dear hand. Few paces, and we reached, up the steep street, hard by the theatre porch, the house where Cyrenian Lucius dwelt. A low-browed house, but large, and from the court a broad stair mounted to the gallery, whence through the open doors I first beheld that holy chamber, birthplace of my soul. The courtyard murmured with the entering throng, the stairway sounded with ascending feet, and listening ranks now darkened all the floor. Simeon among the presbyters was there, and stately Manaen ruled the ordered prayers, and one arose and read from Moses first, then from the prophets, for in those old days we had not yet the gospel, nor the page of blessed oraculous letter, but himself was there, his own epistle, holy Paul, now risen in act to speak, his stature low, beyond example, but upon his face a more than philosophic light untold, of power and loftiest love was seen by all, abiding and with dignity supreme, perpetual changes mingled, as the soul acted intense within, His utterance flagged at times, as broken by some hidden pang, nor ever flowed abundant, nor with flowers cared he to colour his high argument. But all his speech was thought, his glances speech. I sat entranced, held captive in those years. Thou knowest, not seldom in the assembly's rows, voices of sudden prophecy, strange sounds of mystic meaning, but that night was none. So willed my Saviour, merciful, for I asked then for only reason, and that choice was all of grace. So Paul, by guiding grace, showed me that hour the reason of our hope, not in the method of the schools, though skilled, as many an after hour of colloquy apprised me, in our logic and all forms of strictest inference. But his talk that night was of things done, historic, the long hope of Israel, that whose like was never known by Tiber or Elysius or the stream of eldest Egypt, save when once the tribes, heirs of the name of Abraham, pined and toiled around the alien pyramids, and he, their prophet yet to come, amidst the reeds wailed in his ark upon the weltering flood. So from Chaldean Ur, and that first call, through many a process of recorded time, the apostle tracked the promise, till at last I hear him speaking yet. He bade unroll the Psalms and then Isaiah, and recite where stands mysteriously foretold the Lamb, propitiatory victim, slain for sin, yet sinless, dead yet raised in endless life, and how around the nameless man of grief outrageous scorn was heard, and hideous mirth, with torturing wounds inflicted, while he cried dread words inscrutable, my God, why hast thou left me? So the scroll was shut, and long the great expositor discoursed of Jesus and his death, and how the cross fulfilled that slow-wrought promise in detail, minutest, but with amplest overflow, of majesty and love. Nor ceased he there, but spoke of that third day, and of the proof, irrefragable, multifold, profound, of resurrection. Then at length in turn he reasoned high and deep of man, our fall, in Adam, hopeless ruin, from what height, of conscience and of sin and doom to come. Ah, mighty teacher of this darkling soul, how shall I, weak and old, and unlike thee, repeat aright thy message? But what need? He held us long, the midnight stars were up, when forth we came, and all the town was still. And I, full soon alone within my gate, sat reasoning as with a new self unknown, till in the acanthus leaves the chilly dawn made whispers, and the twittering birds began. I saw my sin, unseen before, and there, read in one line our pantheist law undone. For if sin is, that is not, and I knew sin, how I scarce can tell thee, but I knew sin. And far opposite, meanwhile, appeared this strange thing in the universe, this power, unreckoned by my science, this firm shore, fixed amidst fluctuations, light in dark, the prophets and Messiah, mightiest lines of fact, indissoluble, bursting through the spectral orbs of stoic destiny, and answering all to infinite desires, new-born within me. Now through grace awoke, after long slumbers, the soul's inbred love of immortality, and with it came the conscious thought that not a weary load, but bliss supreme it were for I to abide in personality, myself, so once the self might feed forever and repose upon the Lord of Paul, the victim slain, the King, the Son, the eternal promised Christ. He, naught beside, illumined earth and heaven, so I were his, he mine. Forgive, dear child, an old man's wordy memories. I compress large changes of the mind into slow words, ponderous to utter, yet which scarce reveal a partial fragment of realities too swift by far for measurements of time. But those were hours immortal for my soul, and led to other hours when, oft alone with him, my teacher, my all-blessed saint, I oped the anguished conscience and received in all its peace the doctrine of the cross. There let me rest, O Lord, for I am thine. Thus, my Theodotus, the outrageous mirth of voices shouting Christian, forced my will from Zeno and Chrysippus to the truth, to Christ my King. Nor long and low the word thus branded on us by the insulting foe we chose and wore it as a crown of praise, a newborn nation's dear congenial name. For other titles now availed no more, from Palestinian town or region brought, Nazareth or Galilee. In Antioch first voices, long lingering but at length from heaven, had summoned our Hellenic souls to grace, immediate, equal in the realm of God. Strange truth of untold sweetness, though to thee, nursed in the church, young presbyter, the sound is all familiar now. But we, thy sires, first converts, once enlightened to full view of guilt, we oft remembered what of old we utterly had scorned, the Jewish threat that only Israel should ascend at last to life eternal and escape the pit, and inly trembled now lest the holy gate were straitened so indeed. But now in him, incarnate once of Israel, yet for us, we found our lot in covenant too, and called Abraham our father. Blessed straightness this, and blessed largeness, one hope and for all. So on a solemn day in conclave met, not without sign celestial, they decreed that saints with saints in Antioch should no more by other styles be known, but always thus, Christians, from Christ himself, our Lord and Head, our regal priest, anointed, throned, and crowned. And well the word beseemed a truth so great, as thou canst own, my scholar. 'Twas a coin, whose golden substances all was Israel's hope, whose legend, half of Hellas, half of Rome. Days moved, the gusts of windy laughter died, and the church grew. Then came invaders in with alien doctrine from Jerusalem, hostile to Paul. His name, thou knowest it well, their followers yet with glozing lies defame, as though he mangled the primeval truth, he our authentic messenger from heaven, whom I myself in yonder city heard, disputant once with Cephas, and beheld the glorious two before us, after pangs and urgency of contest even to tears, embrace in one firm clasp of equal faith. They long are gone into the ethereal light, and gracious Barnabas likewise, who once with Paul on that great journey Spirit sent, and once, alas, a lonelier man, in grief went in our sight, as westward swelled the sail from old Orontes o'er the Cyprian sea, when came the days of terror, and Rome flamed by Caesar's torch, not ours. The storm of death burst here, as in all lands. We then recalled our Lord, and his indulgent warning given, flee to another city, and made speed by night. Thou knowest, we survive alone. Yet not alone, for Christians even below find always brethren still, and in their Lord are one with those at rest, and walk with him. Thou yet must linger long, not I. A voice comes often, as in those prophetic years, not from my thought, yet in me, and forewarns a sudden passage to the world I love, and painful. But who fears Domitian's gloom, and the old Neronian edicts still are law, our radiant world whose gateway to the soul once looked so darksome, I salute thee now, far off no more, one of our school of old. Before the angry tyrant made reply, my refuge is old age, but I will speak rather of youth immortal, the new life hidden with Christ in God, secure above. Not Zeno's goal of hope incites me now, nor Plato's, nor the doleful glooms I dread of Homer's underworld, existence mere without emotion, everlasting cloud. My paradise is Christ, Christ is its truth, its title and its bliss, my Saviour Christ, he with his Father, light of light divine. There, only there, my blessed ones, long gone, set their desires, and now themselves are there. And theirs must be a life of power unknown, and yet how gentle too, Theodotus. So spoke the old Christian, and the pair awhile, amidst their bower, beside these holy graves, lingered in peace and silence, upward both, gazing through depths of glimmering air. And now the breath of twilight woke, and westward far the fire of Hesper trembled into sight. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Coming Spring by Max Eastman. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. Ice is marching down the river, gaily out to sea. Sunbeams o'er the snow hills quiver, setting torrents free. Yellow are the water willows, yellow clouds are they, rising where the laden billows swell along their way. Arrows of the sun are flying, winter flees the light, and his chilly horn is sighing all the moisty night. Lovers of the balmy weather, lovers of the sun, drifts and duty melt together, get your labors done. Ice is marching down the river, gaily out to sea. Sing the healthy hearted ever, spring is liberty. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Cushion First by Mark Twain. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. When all your days are dark with doubt and dying hope is at its worst, when all life's balls are scattered wide, with not a shot in sight to left or right, don't give it up. Advance your cue and shut your eyes and take the cushion first. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Death in the Desert by Robert Browning, 1816 to 1889. Published in 1864. Read for LibriVox.org. A Death in the Desert. Supposed of Pamphilix the Antiochene. It is a parchment of my rolls the fifth, hath three skins glued together, is all Greek, and goeth from Ypsilon down to me. Lies second in the surnamed chosen chest, stained and conserved with juice of terebinth, covered with cloth of hair, and lettered to C. From Xanthus, my wife's uncle now at peace. Me and Ypsilon stand for my own name. I may not write it, but I make a cross to show I wait his coming with the rest, and leave off here. Beginneth Pamphilix. I said, if I should wet his lips with wine, and slip the broadest plantain leaf we find, or else the lappet of a linen robe, into the water vessel, lay it right, and cool his forehead just above the eyes, the while a brother, kneeling either side, should chafe each hand and try to make it warm. He is not so far gone but he might speak. This did not happen in the outer cave, nor in the secret chamber of the rock, where 60 days since the decree was cut, we had him, bedded on a camel skin, and waited for his dying all the while. But in the midmost grotto, since noon's light reached there a little, and we would not lose the last of what might happen on his face. I at the head, and Xanthus at the feet, with Valens and the boy, had lifted him, and brought him from the chamber in the depths, and laid him in the light where we might see. For certain smiles began about his mouth, and his lids moved, presageful of the end. Beyond, and halfway up the mouth of the cave, the Bactrian convert, having his desire, kept watch, and made pretence to graze a goat that gave us milk on rags of various herb, plantain, and keech. The rock's shade keeps alive, so that if any thief or soldier passed, because the persecution was aware, yielding the goat up promptly with his life, such man might pass on, joyful at a prize, nor care to pry into the cool o' the cave. Outside was all noon and the burning blue. Here is wine, answered Xanthus, drop to drop. I stooped and placed a lap of cloth aright, then chafed his right hand and the boy his left. But Valens had bethought him, and produced and broke a ball of nard, and made perfume. Only he did not so much wake as turn and smile a little, as a sleeper does if any dear one call him, touch his face, and smiles, and loves, but will not be disturbed. Then Xanthus said a prayer, but still he slept. It is the Xanthus that escaped to Rome, was burned, and could not write the chronicle. Then the boy sprang up from his knees and ran, stung by the splendor of a sudden thought, and fetched the 7th plate of graven lead out of a secret chamber, found a place, pressing his finger on the deeper dints, and spoke, as 'twere his mouth proclaiming first, I am the resurrection and the life. Whereat he opened his eyes wide at once, and sat up himself, and looked at us, and thenceforth nobody pronounced a word, only outside the Bactrian cried his cry, like the lone desert bird that wears the ruff, as signal we were safe from time to time. First he said, if a friend declared to me, this my son Valens, this my other son, were James and Peter, nay, declared as well this lad was very John, I could believe. Could, for a moment, doubtlessly believe. So is myself withdrawn into my depths, the soul retreated from the perished brain whence it was wont to feel and use the world through these dull members done with long ago. Yet I myself remain. I feel myself, and there is nothing lost. Let be a while. This is the doctrine he was wont to teach. How diverse persons witness in each man 3 souls which make up one soul. First, to wit, a soul of each and all the bodily parts, seated therein, which works, and is what does, and has the use of earth, and ends the man downward, but, tending upward for advice, grows into, and again is grown into by the next soul, which, seated in the brain, useth the first with its collected use, and feeleth, thinketh, willeth, is what knows, which duly tending upward in its turn, grows into, and again is grown into by the last soul, that uses both the first, subsisting whether they assist or no, and constituting man's self, is what is, and leans upon the former, makes it play, as that played off the first, and, tending up, holds, is upheld by God, and ends the man upward in that dread point of intercourse, nor needs a place, for it returns to him. What does, what knows, what is, 3 souls, 1 man. I give the glossa as Theotopas. And then, a stick, once fire from end to end, now ashes save the tip that holds a spark. Yet, blow the spark, it runs back, spreads itself a little where the fire was. Thus I urge the soul that served me, till it task once more what ashes of my brain have kept their shape, and these make effort to the last of the flesh, trying to taste again the truth of things. He smiled. Their very superficial truth, as that ye are my sons, that it is long since James and Peter had released by death, and I am only he, your brother John, who saw and heard, and could remember all. Remember all. It is not much to say. What if the truth broke on me from above as once and oft times? Such might hap again. Doubtlessly he might stand in presence here, his head wool white, eyes flame, and feet like brass, the sword and the 7 stars, as I have seen. I, who now shudder only and surmise, how did your brother bear that sight and live? If I live yet, it is for good, more love through me to men. Be naught but ashes here that keep a while my semblance, who was John. Still, when they scatter, there is left on earth no one alive who knew. Consider this. saw with his own eyes, and handled with his hands that which was from the first the word of life. How will it be when none more saith, I saw? Such ever was love's way, to rise it stoops. Since I, whom Christ's mouth taught, was bidden teach, I went for many years about the world, saying, it was so, so I heard and saw, speaking as the case asked, and men believed. Afterward came the message to myself in Patmos Isle. I was not bidden teach, but simply listen, take a book and write, nor set down other than the given word, with nothing left to my arbitrament to choose or change. I wrote, and men believed. Then, for my time grew brief, no message more, no call to write again. I found a way, and, reasoning from my knowledge, merely taught men should, for love's sake, in love's strength, believe. Or I would pen a letter to a friend, and urge the same as friend, nor less nor more. Friend said I reasoned rightly, and believed. But at last, why, I seemed left alive, like a sea jelly weak on Patmos' strand, to tell dry sea beach-gazers how I fared, when there was a mid-sea, and the mighty things. Left to repeat, I saw, I heard, I knew, and go all over the old ground again, with Antichrist already in the world, and many Antichrists, who answered prompt, Am I not Jasper, as thyself art John? Nay, young, whereas through age thou mayest forget, wherefore explain, or how shall we believe? I never thought to call down fire on such, or as in wonderful and early days, pick up the scorpion, tread the serpent dumb, but patient stated much of the Lord's life forgotten or misdelivered, and let it work. Since much that at the first, in deed and word, lay simply and sufficiently exposed, had grown, or else my soul was grown to match, fed through such years, familiar with such light, guarded and guided still to see and speak, of new significance and fresh result. What first were guessed as points, I now knew stars, and name them in the gospel I have read. For men said, it is getting long ago. Where is the promise of his coming? Asked these young ones in their strength, as loth to wait of me who, when their sires were born, was old. I, for I loved them, answered joyfully, since I was there, and helpful in my age, and in the main, I think such men believed. Finally, thus endeavoring, I fell sick. Ye brought me here, and I supposed the end, and went to sleep with one thought that, at least, though the whole earth should lie in wickedness, we had the truth, might leave the rest to God. Yet now I wake in such decrepitude, as I had slidden down and fallen afar, past even the presence of my former self, grasping the while for stay at facts which snap, till I am found away from my own world, feeling for a foothold through a blank profound, along with unborn people in strange lands, who say, I hear said or conceive they say, was John at all, and did he say he saw? Assure us, ere we ask what we might see. And how shall I assure them? Can they share, they who have flesh, a veil of youth and strength about each spirit, that needs must bide its time, living and learning still as years assist, which wear the thickness thin, and let man see? With me who hardly am withheld at all, but shudderingly, scarce a shred between, lie bare to the universal prick of light? Is it for nothing we grow old and weak, we whom God loves? When pain ends, gain ends too. To me that story, aye, that life and death of which I wrote. It was, to me, it is, here and now. I apprehend not else. Is not God now i' the world his power first made? Is not his love at issue still with sin, visibly when a wrong is done on earth? Love, wrong, and pain, what see I else around? Yea, and the resurrection and uprise to the right hand of the throne, what is it beside, when such truth, breaking bounds, o'erfloods my soul, and, as I saw the sin and death, even so see I the need yet transiency of both, the good and glory consummated thence. I saw the power, I see the love, once weak resume the power, and in this word I see, lo, there is recognized the spirit of both that moving o'er the spirit of man, unblinds his eye and bids him look. These are, I see, but ye, the children, his beloved ones too, ye need, as I should use an optic glass I wondered at erewhile, somewhere i' the world, it had been given a crafty smith to make. A tube he turned on objects brought too close, lying confusedly insubordinate for the unassisted eye to master once. Looked through his tube, at distance now they lay, become succinct, distinct, so small, so clear. Just thus he needs must apprehend what truth I see, reduced to plain historic fact, diminished into clearness, proved a point and far away. Ye would withdraw your sense from out eternity, strain it upon time. Then stand before that fact, that life and death, stay there at gaze, till it dispart, dispread, as though a star should open out all sides, grow the world on you, as it is my world. For life with all it yields of love and woe, and hope and fear, believed the aged friend, is just our chance o' the prize of learning love, how love might be, hath been indeed, and is, and that we hold thenceforth to the uttermost such prize despite the envy of the world, and, having gained truth, keep truth, that is all. But see the double way wherein we are led, how the soul learns diversely from the flesh, with flesh that hath so little time to stay, and yields mere basement for the soul's emprise. Expect prompt teaching. Helpful was the light, and warmth was cherishing, and food was choice to every man's flesh 1,000 years ago, as now to yours and mine. The body sprang at once to the height, and stayed, but the soul, no. Since sages who, this noontide, meditate in Rome or Athens, may descry some point of the eternal power hid yester eve, and as thereby the power's whole mass extends, so much extends the ether floating o'er the love that tops the might, the Christ in God. Then, as new lessons shall be learned in these till earth's workshop and useless time run out, so duly, daily needs provision be for keeping the soul's prowess possible, building new barriers as the old decay, saving us from the evasion of life's proof, putting the question ever, does God love, and will ye hold that truth against the world? Ye know there needs no second proof with good gained for our flesh from any earthly source. We might go freezing ages, give us fire, thereafter we judge fire at its full worth, and guard it safe through every chance. Ye know that fable of Prometheus and his theft, how mortals gained Jove's fiery flower, grows old. I have been used to hear the pagans own, and out of mind, but fire, howe'er its birth. Here it is, precious to the sophist now, who laughs the myth of Aeschylus to scorn, as precious to those satyrs of his play, who touched it in gay wonder at the thing. While were it so with the soul, this gift of truth once grasped, were this our soul's gain safe and sure to prosper as the body's gain is wont, why, man's probation would conclude, his earth crumble, for he both reasons and decides, weighs first, then chooses. Will he give up fire for gold or purple once he knows its worth? Could he give Christ up, were his worth as plain? Therefore I say to test man the proofs shift, nor may he grasp that fact like other fact, and straightway in his life acknowledge it, as, say the indubitable bliss of fire. Sigh ye, it had been easier once than now? To give you answer, I am left alive. Look at me, who was present from the first. Ye know what things I saw. Then came a test, my first, befitting me who so had seen. Forsake the Christ thou sawest transfigured, him who trod the sea and brought the dead to life? What should wring this from thee? Ye laugh and ask. What wrung it? Even a torchlight and a noise, the sudden Roman faces, violent hands, the fear of what the Jews might do. Just that, and it is written, I forsook and fled. There was my trial, and it ended thus. Aye, but my soul had gained its truth, could grow. Another year or two, what little child, what tender woman that had seen no least of all my sights, but barely heard them told, who did not clasp the cross with a light laugh, or wrap the burning robe round, thanking God. Well, was truth safe forever, then? Not so. Already had begun the silent work whereby truth, deadened of its absolute blaze, might need love's eye to pierce the o'erstretched doubt. Teachers were busy, whispering, all is true as the aged ones report, but youth can reach where ages gropes dimly, weak with stir and strain, and the full doctrine slumbers till today. Thus, what the Roman's lowered spear was found, a bar to me who touched and handled truth, now proved the glozing of some new shrewd tongue, this Ebion, this Cervantes, or their mates, till imminent was the outcry, Save our Christ! Whereupon I stated much of the Lord's life forgotten or misdelivered, and let it work. Such work done, as it will be, what comes next? What do I hear say, or conceive men say? Was John at all, and did he say he saw? Assure us, ere we ask what we might see. Is this indeed a burden for late days? And may I help to bear it with you all, using my weakness, which becomes your strength? For if a babe were born inside this grot, grew to a boy here, heard us praise the sun, yet had but yon glimmer in light's place, one loving him and wishful he would learn, would much rejoice himself, was blinded first, month by month here, so made to understand how eyes, born darkling, apprehend amiss. I think I could explain to such a child there was more glow outside than gleams he caught. I, nor need urge, I saw it, so believe. It is a heavy burden you shall bear in latter days, new lands, or old grown strange, left without me, which must be very soon. What is the doubt, my brothers? Quick with it! I see you stand conversing each new face, either in fields of yellow summer eves, on islets yet unnamed amid the sea, or pace for shelter 'neath the portico out of the crowd in some enormous town, where now the larks sing in a solitude, or muse upon blank heaps of stone and sand idly conjectured to be Ephesus, and no one asks his fellow any more, where is the promise of his coming, but was he revealed in any of his lives, as power, as love, as influencing soul? Quick, for time presses, tell the whole mind out, and let us ask and answer, and be saved. My book speaks on, because it cannot pass. One listens quietly, nor scoffs, but pleads. Here is a tale of things done ages since. What truth was ever told the second day? Wonders that would prove doctrine go for naught. Remains the doctrine, love. Well, we must love, and what we love most, power and love in one. Let us acknowledge on the record here, accepting these in Christ. Must Christ then be? Has he been? Did not we ourselves make him? Our mind receives but what it holds, no more. First of the love, then, we acknowledge Christ, a proof we comprehend his love, a proof we had such love already in ourselves, knew first what else we should not recognize. 'Tis mere projection from man's inmost mind, and what he loves thus falls reflected back, becomes accounted somewhat out of him. He throws it up in air, it drops down earth's, with shape, name, story added, man's old way. How prove you Christ came otherwise at least? Next try the power. He made and rules the world. Certes, there is a world once made, now ruled, unless things have been ever as we see. Our sires declared a charioteer's yoked steeds brought the sun up the east and down the west, which only of itself now rises, sets, as if a hand impelled it, and a will. Thus they long thought, they who had will and hands. But the new question's whisper is distinct. Wherefore must all force needs be like ourselves? We have the hands, the will. What made and drives the sun is force, is law, is named, not known, while will and love we do know. Marks of these eye-witnesses attest, so books declare, as that to punish or reward our race, the sun at undue times arose or set, or else stood still. What do not men affirm? But earth requires as urgently reward or punishment today as years ago, and none expects the sun will interpose. Therefore it was mere passion and mistake, or erring zeal for right, which changed the truth. Go back, farther, farther, to the birth of things. Ever the will, the intelligence, the love, man's, which he gives, supposing he but finds, as late he gave head, body, hands, and feet, to help these in what forms he called his gods. First Jove's brow, Juno's eyes were swept away, but Jove's wrath, Juno's pride continued long. At last will, power, and love discarded these, so law in turn discards power, love, and will. What proveth God is otherwise at least, all else projection from the mind of man. Nay, do not give me wine, for I am strong, but place my gospel where I put my hands. I say that man was made to grow, not stop, that help he needed once, and needs no more, having grown but an inch by, is withdrawn, for he hath new needs and new helps to these. This imports solely, man should mount on each new height in view, the help whereby he mounts, the ladder rung his foot has left, may fall, since all things suffer change, save God the truth. Man apprehends him newly at each stage whereat earth's ladder drops, its service done, and nothing shall prove twice what once was proved. You stick a garden plot with ordered twigs to show inside lie germs of herbs unborn, and check the careless step would spoil their birth. But when herbs wave, the guardian twigs may go, since should ye doubt of virtues, question kinds, it is no longer for old twigs ye look, which proved once underneath lay store of seed, but to the herb's self, by what light ye boast, for what fruits signs are. This book's fruit is plain, nor miracles prove it any more. Doth the fruit show? Then miracles bade wear, at first of root and stem, saved both till now from trampling ox, rough boar, and wanton goat. What? Was man made wheelwork to wind up, and be discharged, and straight wound up anew? No, growth, its growth lasts, taught he never forgets, may learn 1,000 things, not twice the same. This might be pagan teaching, now hear mine. I say that as the babe you feed awhile becomes a boy, and fit to feed himself, so minds at first must be spoon-fed with truth. When they can eat, babe's nurture is withdrawn. I fed the babe whether it would or no. I bid the boy or feed himself or starve. I cried once, that ye may believe in Christ, behold, this blind man shall receive his sight. I cry now, urgest thou, for I am shrewd, and smile at stories how John's word could cure. Repeat that miracle, and take my faith. I say that miracle was duly wrought, when, save for it, no faith was possible. Whether a change were wrought i' the shows o' the world, whether the change came from our minds which see of shows or the world so much as and no more than God wills for his purpose. What do I see now, suppose you, there where you see rock round us? I know not. Such was the effect. So faith grew, making void more miracles, because too much they would compel, not help. I say, the acknowledgment of God in Christ accepted by thy reason solves for thee all questions in the earth and out of it, and has so far advanced thee to be wise. Wouldest thou unprove this to reprove the proved? In life's mere minute, with power to use that proof, leave knowledge and revert to how it sprung? Thou hast it, use it, and forthwith, or die. For I say, this is death, and the soul death, when a man's loss comes to him from his gain, darkness from light, from knowledge ignorance, and lack of love from love made manifest. A lamp's death when, replete with oil, it chokes. A stomach's, when surcharged with food, it starves. With ignorance was surety of a cure, when man, appalled at nature, questioned first, what if there lurk a might beyond this might? He needed satisfaction God could give, and did give, as ye have the written word. But when he finds might still redouble might, yet asks, since all is might, what use of will? Will, the one source of might, he being man with a man's will and a man's might to teach a little how the two combine in large, that man has turned round on himself and stands, which in the course of nature is, to die. And when man questioned, what if there be love behind the will and might, as real as they? He needed satisfaction God could give, and did give, as ye have the written word. But when, beholding that love everywhere, he reasons, Since such love is everywhere, and since ourselves can love and would be loved, we ourselves make the love, and Christ was not. How shall ye help this man who knows himself that he must love and would be loved again, yet owning his own love that proveth Christ, rejecteth Christ through very need of him? The lamp o'erswims with oil, the stomach flags loaded with nurture, and that man's soul dies. If he rejoin, but this was all the while a trick, the fault was, first of all, in thee, thy story of the places, names, and dates, where, when, and how the ultimate truth had rise, thy prior truth at last discovered none, whence now the second suffers detriment. What good of giving knowledge if, because o' the manner of the gift, its profit fail? And why refuse what modicum of help had stopped the after doubt? Impossible i' the face of tenth, truth absolute, uniform. Why must I hit of this and miss of that, distinguish just as I be weak or strong, and not ask of thee, and have answer prompt? Was this once? Was it not once? Then and now and evermore, plain truth from man to man. Is John's procedure just the heathen's bard? Put question of his famous play again, how for the ephemeral's sake Jove's fire was filched, and carried in a cane, and brought to earth. The fact is in the fable, cry the wise. Mortals obtained the boon, so much is fact. Though fire be spirit and produced on earth, as with the Titans, so now with thy tale. Why breed in us perplexity, mistake, nor tell the whole truth in the proper words? I answer, have ye yet to argue out the very primal thesis, plainest law? Man is not God, but hath God's end to serve, a master to obey, a course to take, somewhat to cast off, somewhat to become? Grant this, then man must pass from old to new, from vain to real, from mistake to fact, for what once seemed good, to what now proves best. How could man have progression otherwise? Before the point was mooted, what is God? No savage man inquired, what am myself? Much less replied, first, last, and best of things. Man takes that title now if he believes might can exist with neither will nor love. In God's case, what he names now nature's law, while in himself he recognizes love no less than might and will, and rightly takes. Since if man prove the sole existent thing where these combine, whatever their degree, however weak the might or will or love, so they be found there, put in evidence, he is as surely higher in the scale than any might with neither love nor will, as life apparent in the poorest midge, when the faint dusk speck flits, ye guess its wing, is marvellous beyond dead Atlas's self, given to the nobler midge for resting place. Thus man proves best and highest, God in fine, and thus the victory leads but to defeat, the gain to loss, best rise to the worst fall. His life becomes impossible, which is death. But if, appealing thence, he cower, avouch he is mere man, and in humility neither may know God nor mistake himself, I point to the immediate consequence, and say, by such confession straight he falls into man's place, a thing, nor God nor beast, made to know what he can know, and not more, lower than God who knows all and can all, higher than beasts which know and can so far as each beast's limit, perfect to an end, nor conscious that they know, nor craving more, while man knows partly but conceives beside. creeps ever on from fancies to the fact, and in this striving, this converting air into solid he may grasp and use, finds progress, man's distinctive mark alone, not God's, and not the beast's. God is, they are, man partly is, and wholly hopes to be. Such progress could no more attend his soul were all its struggles after found at first, and guesses changed to knowledge absolute, than motion wait his body, were all else than it the solid earth on every side, where now through space he moves from rest to rest. Man, therefore, thus conditioned, must expect he could not, what he knows now, know at first. What he considers that he knows today, come but tomorrow, he will find misknown, getting increase of knowledge, since he learns because he lives, which is to be a man, set to instruct himself by his past self. First, like the brute, obliged by facts to learn. Next, as man may, obliged by his own mind, bent, habit, nature, knowledge turned into law. God's gift was that man should conceive of truth and yearn to gain it, catching at mistake, as midway help till he reach fact indeed. The statuary ere he mould a shape boasts a like gift, the shape's idea, and next the aspiration to produce the same. So, taking clay, he calls his shape thereout, cries ever, now I have the thing I see, yet all the while goes changing what was wrought, from falsehood like to truth itself. How were it had he cried, I see no face, no breast, no feet in the ineffectual clay? Rather commend him that he clapped his hands and laughed, it is my shape and lives again. Enjoyed the falsehood, touched it on to truth, until yourselves applaud the flesh indeed in what is still flesh imitating clay. Right in you, right in him, such way be man's. God only makes the live shape at a jet. Will ye renounce this pact of creatureship? The pattern on the mount subsists no more, seemed a while, then returned to nothingness, but copies Moses strove to make thereby, serve still and are replaced as time requires. By these make newest vessels reach the type. If ye demur this judgment on your head, never to reach the ultimate angel's law, indulging every instinct of the soul, there where law, life, joy, impulse are one thing. Such is the burden of the latest time. I have survived to hear it with my ears, answer it with my lips. Does this suffice? For if there be a further woe than such, wherein my brothers struggling need a hand, so long as any pulse is left in mine, may I be absent even longer yet, plucking the blind ones back from the abyss, though I should tarry a new 100 years. But he was dead. 'Twas about noon, the day somewhat declining. We 5 buried him that eve, and then, dividing, went 5 ways, and I, disguised, returned to Ephesus. By this the cave's mouth must be filled with sand. Valens is lost, I know not of his trace. The Bactrian was but a wild childish man, and could not write nor speak, but only loved. So lest the memory of this go quite, seeing that I tomorrow fight the beasts, I tell the same to Phoebus, whom believe. For many look again to find that face, beloved John's, to whom I ministered. Somewhere in life about the world they err, either mistaking what was darkly spoke at the ending of his book, as he relates, or misconceiving somewhat of his speech scattered from mouth to mouth, as I suppose. believe ye will not see him any more about the world with his divine regard. For all was as I say, and now the man lies as he lay once, breast to breast with God. Cervantes read and mused. One added this: If Christ, as thou affirmest, be of men near man, the first and best, but nothing more, account him for reward of what he was, now and forever wretchedest of all. For see himself conceived of life as love, conceived of love as what must enter in, fill up, make one with his each soul he loved, thus much for man's joy, all men's joy for him. Well, he is gone, thou sayest, to fit reward. But by this time are many souls set free, and very many still retained alive. Nay, should his coming be delayed a while, say 10 years longer, 12 years some compute, see if for every finger of thy hands there be not found that day the world shall end, hundreds of souls, each holding by Christ's word that he will grow incorporate with all, with me as Pamphilix, with him as John, groom for each bride. Can a mere man do this? Yet Christ saith, this he lived and died to do. Call Christ, then, the illimitable God, or lost. But 'twas Cervantes that is lost. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
An Earth Song by Langston Hughes. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. It's an Earth Song, and I've been waiting long for an Earth Song. It's a spring song, and I've been waiting long for a spring song. Strong as the shoots of a new plant, strong as the bursting of new buds, strong as the coming of the first child from its mother's womb. It's an earth song, a body song, a spring song. I've been waiting long for this spring song. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Eldorado by Edgar Allan Poe. Read for LibriVox.org by Caio Varalta. Gaily bedight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed long, singing a song in search of Eldorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like Eldorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim shadow. Shadow, says he, where can it be, this land of Eldorado? Over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow, ride, boldly ride, the shade replied, if you seek for Eldorado. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Farewell, you children that I might have borne, by Eleanor Fargen. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Farewell, you children that I might have borne. Now must I put you from me year by year. Now, year by year, the root of life be torn out of this womb to which you were so dear. Now, year by year, the milky springs be dried within the sealed-up fountains of my breast. Now, year by year, be to my arms denied the burden they would break with and be blessed. Sometimes I felt your lips and hands so close, I almost could have plucked you from the dark. But now your very dream more distant grows, as my still aching body grows more stark. I shall not see you laugh or hear you weep, kiss you awake, or cover up your sleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Flight by George Edward Woodberry. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. 1. O wild heart, track the land's perfume, beech roses and moor heather, all fragrances of herb and bloom fail out at sea together. O follow where aloft find room, lark song and eagle feather, all ecstasies of throat and plume melt high on yon blue weather. O leave on sky and ocean lost the flight creation dareth. Take wings of love that mounts the most, find fame that furthest fareth. Thy flight, albeit amid her host, thee too night starlike beareth. Flying thy breast on heaven's coast, the infinite outweareth. 2. Dead o'er us roll celestial fires, mute stand earth's ancient beaches, old thoughts, old instincts, old desires, the passing hour outreaches. The soul creative never tires, evokes, adores, beseeches, and that heart most the God inspires, who most its wildness teaches. For I will course through falling years, and stars and cities burning, and I will march through dying cheers, past empires unreturning. Ever the world flame reappears, where mankind power is earning. The nation's hopes, the people's tears, one with the wild heart yearning. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Fond Lover by William Faulkner. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. A Ballad. A nymph of every charm possessed that native virtue gives, within my bosom all confessed, in bright idea lives. For her my trembling numbers play along the pathless deep, while sadly social with my lay the winds in concert weep. If beauty's sacred influence charms the rage of adverse fate, say why the pleasing soft alarms such cruel pangs create? Since all her thoughts by sense refined unartful truth express, say wherefore sense and truth are joined to give my soul distress? If when her blooming lips I press, which vernal fragrance fills, through all my veins the sweet excess in trembling motion thrills, say whence this secret anguish grows, congenial with my joy, and why the touch, where pleasure glows, should vital peace destroy? If when my fair, in melting song, awakes the vocal lay, not all your notes, ye Phocian throng, such pleasing sounds convey. Thus wrapt all o'er with fondest love, why heaves this broken sigh? For then my blood forgets to move, I gaze, adore, and die. Accept, my charming maid, the strain which you alone inspire. To thee the dying strings complain that quiver on my lyre. Oh, give this bleeding bosom ease that knows no joy but thee. Teach me thy happy art to please, or deign to love like me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fungi from Yuggoth by H.P. Lovecraft. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Schempf. 1. The Book. The place was dark and dusty and half lost in tangles of old alleys near the quays, reeking of strange things brought in from the seas, and with queer curls of fog that west winds tossed. Small lozenge panes, obscured by smoke and frost, just showed the books, in piles like twisted trees, rotting from floor to roof, congergeries of crumbling elder lore at little cost. I entered, charmed, and from a cobwebbed heap took up the nearest tome and thumbed through it, trembling at curious words that seemed to keep some secret, monstrous if one only knew. Then, looking for some cellar old in craft, I could find nothing but a voice that laughed. 2. Pursuit. I held the book beneath my coat, at pains to hide the thing from sight in such a place, hurrying through the ancient harbor lanes with often turning head and nervous pace. Dull furtive windows in old tottering brick peered at me oddly as I hastened by, and thinking what they sheltered, I grew sick for a redeeming glimpse of the clean blue sky. No one had seen me take the thing, but still a blank laugh echoed in my whirling head, and I could guess what nighted worlds of ill lurked in that volume I had coveted. The way grew strange, the walls alike and matting, and far behind me unseen feet were padding. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Gloomy Solitude by Betty Pioli, 1815 to 1894. Read for LibriVox.org. When mother sick upon her deathbed lay, the world around her altered, day by day. First came the doctor's hest, remove all flowers, her love and her solace in her happier hours. Then to the light of day was entrance banned, to give the sick one rest and ease 'twas planned. Then came the priest to shrive the dying heart, from out the chamber must her child depart. So from all earthly joys, in progress slow, her spirit breathed its last, life's empty show. From me have vanished fragrance, love, and light. Death's footsteps I await in gloomy night. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Homely Counsel on Care by Mark Guy Pearce. Read for LibriVox.org by Devorah Allen. A winding hill, on either side the hedge, crowned by the wind-shorn trees and bright with flowers. A turn, and then the blue expanse of sea, on either hand, and broken line of coast. A step, and there the haven lies below, shut in by rocks, where wild waves surge and foam. A burst of thunder, then a shower of spray. A rough stone pier with groups of fishermen, and in its shelter sway the anchored boats. And nearer, children play about the beach, the blue smoke of the clustered cottages as a thin veil o'erspreads, while far and near fly the white gulls, or dip with mewing cry. Within a garden by her cottage door sits an old mother, knitting busily, hair snowy white beneath a snow-white cap, eyes blue as the blue skies that arch the place, a face all full of peace and sunny hopes. A cheery song she sings, a moment stayed, to count the stitches and to set them right, then click the needles music to her song. From her I learned this counsel upon care. Don't you trouble trouble till trouble troubles you. Don't you look for trouble, let trouble look for you. Don't you borrow sorrow, you'll surely have your share. He who dreams of sorrow will find that sorrow's there. Don't you hurry worry by worrying lest it come. To flurry is to worry, 'twill missy if you're mum. If care you've got to carry, wait till 'tis at the door. For he who runs to meet it takes up the load before. If minding will not mend it, then better not to mind. The best thing is to end it, just leave it all behind. Who feareth hath forsaken the heavenly Father's side. What he hath undertaken, he surely will provide. The very birds reprove thee with all their happy song. The very flowers teach thee that fretting is a wrong. Cheer up, the sparrow chirpeth, thy Father feedeth me. Think how much more he careth, O lonely child, for thee. Fear not, the flowers whisper, since thus he hath arrayed the buttercup and daisy, how canst thou be afraid? Then don't you trouble trouble, till trouble troubles you. You'll only double trouble, and trouble others too. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Home Thoughts from Abroad by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. Oh, to be in England, now that April's there, and whoever wakes in England sees some morning unaware that the lowest boughs and the brushwood sheaf round the elm-tree bole are in tiny leaf, while the chaffinch sings on the orchard bough in England, now. And after April, when May follows, and the white-throat builds, and all the swallows, hark, where my blossomed pear-tree in the hedge leans to the field and scatters on the clover blossoms and dewdrops at the bent spray's edge. That's the wise thrush. He sings each song twice over, lest you should think he never could recapture the first fine careless rapture. And though the fields look rough with hoary dew, all will be gay when noontide wakes anew. The buttercups, the little children's dower, far brighter than this gaudy melon flower. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Land of Nod by Robert Louis Stevenson. Read for LibriVox.org by TallyTiger. The Land of Nod. From breakfast on, through all the day, at home among my friends I stay. But every night I go abroad, afar into the land of Nod. All by myself I have to go, with none to tell me what to do. All alone beside the streams, and up the mountainside of dreams. The strangest things are there for me, both things to eat and things to see, and many frightening sights abroad, till morning in the land of Nod. Try as I like to find the way, I can never get back by day, nor can remember plain and clear the curious music that I hear. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Laughing Song by William Blake. Read for LibriVox.org by Emily Dunlap. When the green woods laugh with the voice of joy, and the dimpling stream runs laughing by, when the air does laugh with our merry wit, and the green hill laughs with the noise of it, when the meadows laugh with lively green, and the grasshopper laughs in the merry scene, when Mary and Susan and Emily with their sweet round mouths sing ha-ha-hee, when the painted birds laugh in the shade, where a table with cherries and nuts is spread, come live and be merry and join with me to sing in the sweet chorus of ha-ha-hee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Leisure by W. H. Davis. read for LibriVox.org by Emily Dunlap. What is this life, if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs, and stare as long as sheep or cows, no time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass, no time to see, in broad daylight, streams full of stars like skies at night, no time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance, no time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this, if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. Read for LibriVox.org by N.R. Collard. "Is there anybody there?" said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence chomped the grasses of the forest ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. But no one descended to the traveller, no head from a leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote the door even louder and lifted his head. "Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word," he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from the one man left awake. Aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hooves were gone. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Magic by Edward J. O'Brien. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. To WSB. I ran into the sunset light as hard as I could run. The treetops bowed in sheer delight as if they loved the sun. And all the songs of little birds who laughed and cried in silver words were joined as they were one. And down the streaming golden sky a lark came circling with a cry of wonder-weaving joy, and all the arch of heaven rang where meadowlands of dreaming hang, as when I was a boy. And through the ringing solitude, in pulsing lovely amplitude, a mist hung in a shroud, as though the light of loneliness turned pure delight to holiness, and bathed it in a cloud. I stripped my laughing body bare, and plunged into that holy air that washed me like a sea, and raced against its silver tide that stroked my eager glancing side, and made my spirit free. Across the limits of the land the wind and I swept hand in hand beyond the golden glow. We danced across the ocean plain like thrushes singing in the rain a song of long ago. And on into the silver night we strove to win the race with light, and bring the vision home, and bring the wonder home again unto the sleeping eyes of men across the singing foam. And down the river of the world our glowing limbs in glory swirled, as spring within a flower, and stars in music of delight streamed gaily down our shoulders white, like petals in a shower, and tears of awful wonder ran adown my cheeks to hear the clan of beauty chaunting white, the prayer too deep for living word, or sight of man, or winging bird, or music over forest heard at falling of the night, and dropping slowly as the dew on grasses that the winds renew in urge of flooding fire, and softly as the hushing boughs the gentle airs of dawn arouse to cradle morning's choir, the murmur of the singing leaves around the secret flame, like mating swallows 'neath the eaves in rustling silence came, and flowing through the silent air creation fluttered in a prayer, descending on a spiral stair and calling me by name. It nestled in my dreaming eyes like heaven in a lake, and softened hope into surprise for very beauty's sake, and silence blossomed into morn whose fragrant rosy-breasted dawn could scarcely bear to break. I sang into the morning light as loud as I could sing. The tree-tops bowed in sheer delight before the slanting wing, and all the songs of little birds who laughed and cried in silver words adored the risen spring.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Migno by Johann Goethe, 1749 to 1832. Read for LibriVox.org. Knowest thou the land where the fair citron blows, where the bright orange midst the foliage glows, where soft winds greet us from the azure skies, where silent myrtles, stately laurels rise? Knowest thou it well? 'Tis there, 'tis there, that I with thee, beloved one, would repair. Knowest thou the house? On the columns rests its pile, its halls are gleaming, and its chambers smile, and marble statues stand and gaze on me. Poor child, what sorrow hath befallen thee? Knowest thou it well? 'Tis there, 'tis there, that I with thee, protector, would repair. Knowest thou the mountain and its cloudy bridge? The mule can scarcely find the misty ridge. In caverns dwells the dragon's olden brood, and frowning crag obstructs the raging flood. Knowest thou it well? 'Tis there, 'tis there our path lies. Father, thither, O repair! End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Mower Against Gardens by Andrew Marvell. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandra. Luxurious man, to bring his vice in use, did after him the word seduce, and from the fields the flowers and plants allure, where nature was most plain and pure. He first enclosed within the garden's square a dead and standing pool of air, and a more luscious earth for them did need, which stupefied them while it fed. The pink grew then as double as his mind, the nutriment did change the kind. With strange perfumes he did the roses taint, and flowers themselves were taught to paint. The tulip white did for complexion seek, and learned to interline its cheek. Its onion root they then so high did hold, that one was for a meadow sold. Another world was searched through oceans new, to find the marvel of Peru. And yet these rarities might be allowed to man, that sovereign thing and proud, had he not dealt between the bark and tree, forbidden mixtures there to see. No plant now knew the stock from which it came. He grafts upon the wild, the tame, that the uncertain and adulterate fruit might put the palate in dispute. His green seraglio has its eunuchs too, lest any tyrant him outdo. And in the cherry he does nature vex, to procreate without a sex. 'Tis all enforced, the fountain and the grot, while the sweet fields do lie forgot, where willing nature does to all dispense a wild and fragrant innocence. And fauns and fairies do the meadows till more by their presence than their skill. Their statues, polished by some ancient hand, may to adorn the gardens stand, but howsoe'er the figures do excel, the gods themselves with us do dwell. Note: the marvel of Peru is Mirabilia peruviana, or Admirabilis planta. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Muse of Brotherhood by Edwin Markham. Read for LibriVox.org by Joanna Michael Hoyt. I am in the expectancy that runs. My feet are in the future, whirled afar on wings of light. If I have any sons, let them arise and follow to my star. Some momentary touches of my fire have warmed the barren ages with a beam. There is no peak beyond my swift desire. There is no beauty deeper than my dream. I make an end of life's stupendous jest, the merry waste of fortunes by the few, while the thin faces of the poor are pressed against the panes, a hungry whirlwind crew. I come to lift the soul-destroying weight, to heal the hurt, to end the foolish loss, to take the toiler from his brutal fate, the toiler hanging on the labor cross. I bring to earth the feel of home again, that men may nestle on her warm, still breast. I bring to wronged, humiliated men the sacred right to labor and to rest. I bring to men the fine ideal stuff the young gods took to build the spheres of old. The fire I send on men is great enough to burn the iron kingdoms into gold. I hold the way until the bright heavens bend, until the new republic shall arise, and quick young deities again descend, bringing the gifts of God with joyous cries. I lead the graces and the winged powers. The world the anarchs built I will destroy, for I will storm upon its demon towers with wind of laughter and with rain of joy. And at the first break of my social song a hush will fall upon the foolish strife, as though a joyous God, serene and strong, shined suddenly before the steps of life. Cold hearts that falter are my only bar. Heroes that seek my ever-fading goal must take their reckoning from the central star and follow the equator. I am soul. My love is higher than heavens where Taurus wheels. My love is deeper than the pillared skies. High as that peak in heaven where Milton kneels. Deep as that grave in hell where Caesar lies. Still hope for man. My star is on the way. Great Hugo saw it from his prison isle. It lit the mighty dream of Lamennais. It led the ocean thunders of Carlyle. Wise Greeley saw the star of my desire. Wise Lincoln knelt before my hidden flame. It was from me they drew their sacred fire. I am religion, by her deeper name. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Nearer My God to Thee by Sarah Adams. Read for LibriVox.org by Caleb Mann. Nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee,
E'en though it be a cross that raiseth me, still all my song shall be, nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee. Though like the wanderer the sun goes down, and darkness be over me, my rest a stone, yet in my dreams I'd be nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee. There let the way appear, steps unto heaven, all that thou sendest me in mercy given, angels to beckon me nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee. Then with my waking thoughts, bright with thy praise, out of my stony griefs Bethel I'll raise, so by my woes to be nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee. Or if on joyful wing, cleaving the sky, sun, moon, and stars forgot, upward I fly, still all my song shall be, nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes. As recorded at LibriVox.org by Scott Leonard Fortune. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Old Astronomer by Sarah Williams, a LibriVox recording by Chris Moriarty. The Old Astronomer. Reach me down, my Tycho Brahe, I would know him when we meet, when I share my later science sitting humbly at his feet. He may know the law of all things, yet be ignorant of how we are working to completion, working on from then till now. Pray remember that I leave you all my theory complete, lacking only certain data for your adding, as is meet. And remember, men will scorn it, 'tis original and true, and the obloquy of newness may bitterly fall on you. But my pupil, as my pupil, you have learnt the worth of scorn. You have laughed with me at pity, we have joyed to be forlorn. What for us are all distractions of men's fellowships and smiles? What for us the goddess pleasure with her meretricious wiles? You may tell that German college that their honor comes too late, but they must not waste repentance on the grisly savant's fate. Though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. I have loved the stars too truly to be fearful of the night. What, my boy, are you not weeping? You should save your eyes for sight. You will need them, mine observer, yet for many another night. I leave none but you, my pupil, unto whom my plans are known. You have none but me, you murmur, and I leave you quite alone. Well then, kiss me, since my mother left me her blessing on my brow. There has been something wanting in my nature until now. I can dimly comprehend it, that I might have been more kind, might have cherished you more wisely as the one I leave behind. I have never failed in kindness, no, we live too high for strife. Calmest coldness was the air which crept into our life. But your spirit is untainted, I can dedicate you still to the service of our science. Will you further it? You will. There are certain calculations I should like to make with you to be sure that your deductions will be logical and true. And remember, patience, patience is the watchword of a sage. Not today, nor yet tomorrow, can complete a perfect age. I have sown like Tycho Brahe, that a greater man may reap, but if none should do my reaping, 'twill disturb me in my sleep. So be careful and be faithful, though like me you leave no name. See, my boy, that nothing turn you to the merest pursuit of fame. I must say goodbye, my pupil, for I cannot longer speak. Draw the curtains back for Venus, ere my vision grows too weak. It is strange the pearly planet should look red as fiery Mars. God will mercifully guide me on my way amongst the stars. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the Bleakness of My Lot by Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Kaluna on April 11th, 2021. On the bleakness of my lot, bloom I strove to raise. Late my acre of a rock yielded grape and maize. Soil of flint, if steadfast tilled, will reward the hand. Seed of palm by Libyan sun, fructified in sand. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the Grasshopper and Cricket by John Keats. Read for LibriVox.org by Cami Vavich. The poetry of earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun, and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new-mown mead. That is the grasshopper's. He takes the lead in summer luxury. He has never done with his delights. For when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. The poetry of earth is ceasing never. On a lone winter evening, when the frost has wrought a silence, from the stove there shrills the cricket's song, in warmth increasing ever, and seems to one in drowsiness half lost, the grasshoppers among some grassy hills. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the great encouragement given by English nobility and gentry to Correggio, Rubens, Reynolds, Gainsborough, Catalani, Ducrot, and Dilbury Doodle by William Blake. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. As the ignorant savage will sell his own wife for a sword or a cutlass, a dagger or knife, so the taught savage Englishman spends his whole fortune on a smear or a squall to destroy picture or tune, and I call upon Colonel Wardle to give these rascals a dose of coddle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. On hearing that the students of our new university have joined the Ancient Order of Hibernians and the agitation against immoral literature by William Butler Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. Where but here have pride and truth that long to give themselves for wage, to shake their wicked sides at youth, restraining reckless middle age. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the uncommon scarcity of poetry in the Gentleman's Magazine for December last, 1755, by I.W., a sailor, by William Falconer, read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. The springs of Helicon can winter bind, and chill the fervour of a poet's mind? What though the lowering skies and driving storm the scenes of nature wide around deform? The birds no longer sing, nor roses blow, and all the landscape lies concealed in snow. Yet rigid winter still is known to spare the brighter beauties of the lovely fair. Ye lovely fair, your sacred influence bring, and with your smiles anticipate the spring. Yet what avails the smiles of lovely maids, or vernal suns that glad the flowery glades? The wood's green foliage, or the varying scene of fields and lawns, and gliding streams between? What, to the wretch whom harder fates ordain, through the long year to plough the stormy main? No murmuring streams, no sound of distant sheep, or song of birds invite his eyes to sleep. By toil exhausted, when he sinks to rest, beneath his sunburnt head no flowers are pressed. Down on his deck his fainting limbs are laid, no spreading trees dispense their cooling shade, no zephyrs round his aching temples play, no fragrant breezes noxious heats allay. The rude rough wind which stern Aeolus sends drives on in blasts, and while it cools, offends. He wakes, but hears no music from the grove, no varied landscape courts his eye to rove. O'er the wide main he looks to distant skies, where naught but waves on rolling waves arise. The boundless view fatigues his aching sight, nor yields his eye one object of delight. No female face divine with cheering smiles the lingering hours of dangerous toil beguiles. Yet distant beauty oft his genius fires, and oft with love of sacred song inspires. E'en I, the least of all the tuneful train, on the rough ocean try this artless strain. Rouse then, ye bards, who happier fortunes prove, and tune the lyre to nature or to love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Red Flag by Alfred Fennell, read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. 'Tis in the red flag true republicans glory. Red is the emblem of justice and right. By martyrs' blood died, whose names live in story, the victors, though fallen, in liberty's fight. Fast flow our tears for the fettered and slaughtered, and exiles who wander o'er valley and crag. Too long has the earth by tyrants been tortured. They shall crouch yet and cower before our red flag. Away to the winds with the cant moderation. Mercy is not with king, tiger, or snake. Crush them to the dust as they've crushed each nation. In the day of our triumph kings tremble and quake. Mercy, yes, mercy, such as they gave us. Such will return, and throneless will drag from their high places all those that enslave us, to bow mean and abject before our red flag. Mercy, while high now riots in murder, and tiger-like gloats o'er the blood of mankind, while the serfs of the Tsar pour Poland and girder, the betrayers of France Rome's chains again bind. Sicily crushed 'neath the Bourbon lies bleeding, and Hungary curses the Austrian rag. The nations oppressed pray the time may be speeding, when in triumph and glory shall fly our red flag. That glad time shall come, kings, though patriots you slaughter. Fresh legions shall rise for the martyrs who fall. Through tempest and sunshine the nations have fought for fair freedom benignant, who yet shall bless all. We, the people, remember wrongs despots have wrought us. Of their divine right not much more shall they brag. Moderation is madness, experience hath taught us. When at freedom's next summons we hoist the red flag. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sea Fever by John Masefield. Read for LibriVox.org by Caleb Mann. I must down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. And the wheels kick, and the wind's song, and the white sails shaking, and the grey mist on the sea's face, and a grey dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied. And all I ask is a windy day, with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray and the brown spume and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gulls' way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep, and a sweet dream when the long trick's over. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song by Georgiana Goddard King. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. From the Way of Perfect Love. Something calls and whispers along the city street, through shrill cries of children and soft stir of feet, and makes my blood to quicken, and makes my flesh to pine. The mountains are calling, the winds wake the pine. Past the quivering poplars that tell of water near the long road is sleeping, the white road is clear. Yet scent and touch can summon afar from brook and tree the deep boom of surges, the grey waste of sea. Sweet to dream and linger in windless orchard close, on bright brows of ladies to garland the rose. But all the time are glowing beyond this little world the still light of planets, and the star-swarm's world. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Song of Spring by Charles Edward Delacour Beresford. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. It was spring, joyous spring, when each bud had just unfolden from its bursting calyx golden. All the greenery of spring when I heard the cuckoo sing, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. It was spring, joyous spring, when the shepherd on the wold, having tended well the fold, saw the meek-eyed ewes well sheltered 'gainst the hail and rain that peltered on the downs in the spring. It was spring, joyous spring, and the blackthorn and the white, breaking forth from out the night, and the dark of winter's gloom, raced the chestnuts into bloom with the leaves in gentle spring. It was spring, joyous spring, when from bush and bough and tree burst a song of joy to thee, who hast made the lark that singeth, and the earth whose produce bringeth forth in spring. when I heard the cuckoo sing, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. April 1896. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Song of Wandering Angus by W.B. Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. I went out to the hazel wood, because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream, and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name, and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she is gone, and kiss her lips, and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Sower by Edwin Markham. Read for LibriVox.org by Joanna Michael Hoyt. The Sower, written after seeing Millet's painting with this title. Soon will the lonesome cricket by the stone begin to hush the night, and lightly blown field fragrances will fill the fading blue. Old furrow scents that ancient Eden knew. Soon in the upper twilight will be heard the winging whisper of a homing bird. Who is it coming on the slant brown slope, touched by the twilight and her mournful hope, coming with hero step, with rhythmic swing where all the bodily motions weave and sing? The grief of the ground is in him, yet the power of earth to hide the furrow with the flower. He is the stone rejected, yet the stone whereon is built metropolis and throne. Out of his toil come all their pompous shows, their purple luxury and plush repose. The grime of this bruised hand keeps tender white the hands that never labor, day nor night. His feet that know only the field's rough floors send lordly steps down echoing corridors. Yea, this vicarious toiler at the plough gives that fine pallor to my lady's brow. And idle armies, with their boom and blare, flinging their foolish glory on the air, he hides their nakedness, he gives them bed, and by his alms their hungry mouths are fed. Not his the lurching of an aimless clod, for with the august gesture of a god, a gesture that is question and command, he hurls the bread of nations from his hand, and in the passion of the gesture flings his fierce resentment in the face of kings. This is the earth god of the latter day, treading with solemn joy the upward way, a lusty god that in some crowning hour will hurl grey privilege from the place of power. These are the inevitable steps that make unreason tremble and tradition shake. This is the world will climbing to its goal, the climb of the unconquerable soul, democracy whose sure insurgent stride jars kingdoms to their ultimate stone of pride. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Spring by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Read for LibriVox.org by Holton Johnson. Nothing is so beautiful as spring, when weeds in wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Thrush's eggs look little low heavens, and thrush through the echoing timbre does so rinse and ring the ear, it strikes like lightnings to hear him sing. The glassy pear-tree leaves and blooms, they brush the descending blue. That blue is all in a rush with richness. The racing lambs too have fair their fling. What is all this juice and all this joy? A strain of the earth's sweet being in the beginning in Eden garden. Have, get, before it cloy, before it cloud, Christ, Lord, and sour with sinning, innocent mind and May-day in girl and boy. Most, O maid's child, thy choice and worthy the winning. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To My Brothers by John Keats. Read for LibriVox.org by Cammie Vavich. Small, busy flames play through the fresh-laid coals, and their faint cracklings o'er our silence creep, like whispers of the household gods that keep a gentle empire o'er fraternal souls. And while, for rhymes, I search around the poles, your eyes are fixed, as in poetic sleep, upon the lore so voluble and deep, that I at fall of night our care condoles. This is your birthday, Tom, and I rejoice that thus it passes smoothly, quietly. Many such eves of gently whispering noise may we together pass, and calmly try what are this world's true joys, ere the great voice from its fair face shall bid our spirits fly. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To a poet who would have me praise certain bad poets, imitators of his and mine, by William Butler Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. You say, as I have often given tongue, in praise of what another's said or sung, 'twere politic to do the like by these. But have you known a dog to praise his fleas? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To Solitude by John Keats. Read for LibriVox.org by Cammie Vavich. O solitude, if I must with thee dwell, let it not be among the jumbled heap of murky buildings. Climb with me the steep, nature's observatory, whence the dell, its flowery slopes, its river's crystal swell, may seem a span. Let me thy vigils keep, 'mongst boughs pavilioned, where the deer's swift leap startles the wild bee from the foxglove bell. But though I'll gladly trace these scenes with thee, yet the sweet converse of an innocent mind, whose words are images of thoughts refined, is my soul's pleasure, and it sure must be, amongst the highest bliss of humankind, when to thy haunts 2 kidnapped spirits flee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Trees by Joyce Kilmer. Read for LibriVox.org by Jade Leopilling. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the sweet earth's hungry breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Two Moods from the Hill by Ernest Benchamal. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. 1. Youth. I love to watch the world from here, for all the numberless living portraits that are drawn upon the mind. Far over is the sea, fronting the sand, a few great yellow dunes, a salt marsh stumbling after, rank and green, with brackish gullies wandering in between. All this from the hill, and more, a clump of dwarfed and twisted cedars, sentinels over the marsh, and bright with the sun, a field of daisies wandering in the wind, as though a hidden serpent glided through. A broken wall, a new ploughed field, and then the dusty road and the abodes of men surrounding the hill. How small the enclosure is, wherein there lives each phase and passion of life. The distant sail dips in the limpid bosom of the sea, from that far place to where in state the turf raises a throne for me upon the hill. Each little love and lust of a living thing can thus be compassed in a rainbow ring, and seen from the hill. 2. Age. Why did I build my cottage on a hill, facing the sea? Why did I plan each terraced lawn to slope down to the deep blue billowy breast of hope, surging and sweeping, laughing and leaping, tumbling its garments of foam upon the shore, rustling the sands that know my step no more? I should have found a valley, deep and still, to shelter me. There flows the river, and it seems asleep, so far away. Yet I remember whip of wave and roar of wind that rose and smote against the oar, smote and retreated, proud but defeated, while I rejoiced and rode into the brine, drawing on wet and heavy straining line the great cod, quivering from the deep as counterplay. What is the solace of these hills and vales that rise and fall? What is there glorious in the greenwood glen, or twittering thrush, or wing of darting wren? Give me the gusty, raucous, and rusty call of the seagull in the echoing sky, the wild shriek of the winds that cannot die. Give me the life that follows the bending sails, or none at all.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Wilt Thou Put Seals on Love? By Eleanor Fargen. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Wilt thou put seals on love, because men say love is a thing that certain time will steal? As well, since night is certain after day, might men their eyelids to the noontide seal. Nay, even though that worn-out tale were truth, and love, dear love, were time's assured dower, what profit canst thou get of cheated youth by paying usury before his hour? I will not hear the sorry tune of time, that bitter quencher of young blessedness. Not to have proved young rapture is the crime. Unproven it will be quenched no less, no less. And thou wilt to the earth at last time's scorn, relinquishing a crown thou hast not worn. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Wish by Samuel Rogers. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. Mine be a cot beside the hill. A beehive's hum shall soothe my ear. A willowy brook that turns a mill with many a fall shall linger near. The swallow oft beneath my thatch shall twitter from her clay-built nest. Oft shall the pilgrim lift the latch and share my meal, a welcome guest. Around my ivied porch shall spring each fragrant flower that drinks the dew, and Lucy at her wheel shall sing in a russet gown and apron blue. The village church, among the trees where first our marriage vows were given, with merry peals shall swell the breeze, and point with taper spire to heaven. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.